Hello, everyone, and welcome to this thought provoking and enlightening panel discussion that promises to shed light on crucial and often underestimated aspect of managing your passwords. So, we have very interesting panel today. I would like to introduce them to you all. We have Sanket Parikar, co-founder of Revise, and he has over 12 years of experience in data protection and security. He specializes in customer interaction, problem solving, and product management. Welcome to the panel, Sanket.
Thank you, Shivani.
Then we have Dr. Abhilasha Rakesh Vyas. She is business unit head at CloudDat, and she is also an executive member of Women in Big Data India, InfoSec Girls, and there are many more communities she is part of. She is a Microsoft certified trainer and a recognized figure in the field of cybersecurity. Welcome to the panel, Abhilasha. Then we have Ravi Verma, Director Technical Support at Dhruva. He boasts over 2 decades of experience and excels in problem solving, team motivation, and customer advocacy. He is known for bringing order to the chaotic situations. Welcome to the panel, Ravi.
Thank you, Shivani.
And then we have Manish Nath Tiwari. He's founder of Dream Reflection Media, co-founder of Kia Solutions and Tulsi. He's a strategist and leader in digital realm, providing solutions for startups and SMEs. He has built a versatile team and helped numerous coaches achieve their business dream. Welcome to the panel, Manish.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you so much.
Well, today's topic is like indeed very interesting because everywhere we have been talking about passwords and how to maintain them, making 18-digit password or having strong eight-digit password combinations of numbers, letters, special characters. But still somewhere or the other, we always face like we are not at it and we are not making better engagements while making our own passwords. So, in the world where password 123 is still a common choice, how we can effectively make sure that we are using strong and unique passwords?
So let me take that right. I mean, I want everybody to kind of look at it from a perspective of why passwords and authentication, why it's required, and what are the various classes of authentication, right? So authentication is required, like if you want to come to your own house, you need to have your own key to open the door and get into your house. That's a very basic way of authenticating yourself to your house, to your family and stuff. Now, and that's the whole requirement. You have to identify yourself to get or access services, access whatever you want to have. Now, if you just look at it, a key, it's something that you have, right? And that's where I kind of take you towards the classification of authentications, where you kind of look at various things, which means what you have, and even before that, what you know, right? And that's where your passwords come in. What you know in your mind, what you know, what you remember, what you can present somebody. Who are you? I'm Ravi Verma. Okay, I know you. Fine, you're authenticated. Uh, can you identify yourself? Yeah, I have my identity card. Oh, okay, fine. I authenticate you. And one notch above is looking at my face. I'm your husband, so looking at my face, and you'll say, "You're my husband." So these are the three different classifications of authentication, which kind of tells us, or which is where overall evolution of authentication has happened, is from what you know to what you have to who you are. And that's where today you have your facial recognition, biometrics, and all of that. Coming back to your question of why we still have password 123, and I can kind of vouch as Sanket, and I kind of crossed paths working with a product which was kind of coming up in some time back, and now it's one of the world leaders. And to start with, when I joined the organization, I was surprised to see that why we don't have a password reset option, right? But there is a lot in the back end or the background that happens, and as you evolve in the market as a product, or as a user, it has its own path of evolution. So if I bring in a product today, and if I am my core services, let's say I'm from backup, my core service is backup, then maybe I'm not very focused in how I authenticate to the product. My whole focus, my whole technology is on how I back up your data. And that's where I pause and let other to chime in and say why we still have password 123.
The other challenge, which I believe, which I normally see in our company, that we're an IT firm, right? And we have a big team. We are dealing with so many CRMs right now, and it's very tough to manage all the passwords. It's not like you're just dealing with your email password, your website password. You're dealing with your CRM password. You're dealing with your hosting password. Then you're dealing with customers' passwords, which they are having a lot, right? So if you're handling 10 clients also, and 10 clients have their 10 platforms, so just understand you're dealing with hundreds of login details. And the most trouble which people face, and that's why they try to avoid the two-phase authentication, is like some of the clients are working in the US hours and we are working on Indian hours. So it faces a lot of challenges to work on those situations. We had these troubles too, but as we learn and we evolve, we started using the password manager like LastPass to store those passwords and making sure that we don't use password at date 123, or maybe dream at date 123 or something like that. We changed that process and try slowly and steadily we started using the difficult password, which is very hard to remember, but again, to secure your site. Then came the two-factor authentication issue, and my team was very much having trouble with that. So we started using the adding as a team, delegating ourselves as a team member, so that we can also authenticate from our end, other than just waiting for the client. So these are the few things I think we should implement on, and we can use while working on a different platform. In case we are dealing with more than two or three platforms, we can use as a user, add as a user ourselves. If we are using someone else's login detail, or if we are using our own, then we can delegate the access to someone else so that they can also use and without sharing the password. So things are evolving, and I think not many people are aware of it, or they're like people are scared to use the like password managers. They're still scared because they are they have a fear that it can be hacked and they lose their password. But again, people are working really hard to make sure that they secure the password to this password manager. That's what I feel.
So, Shivani, I would like to add a different perspective to what Ravi and Manish said, right? Of course, those are pretty important points, but we all are humans, right? At some point, and at least in today's era, on an average, what study says is you still have five different portals and apps where you have common passwords, or probably you're dealing with so many apps that it's a human tendency that you may want to keep things common, right? Because you don't want to keep on remembering different passwords for different sites. And now to what Manish said, right? When you get into organization, you already deal with so many different applications that you have your personal apps, you have probably social media applications, travel applications, and then you go to office, you have so many other applications, right? So overall, as a human, what happens over the period is you start reusing those passwords, or at least you start having similar patterns, right? That's where, going back to your question, password 123 becomes a norm in a way that, hey, I don't want to remember so many different passwords. Let me have one pattern and start following that pattern across, right? And that's where you create a risk. You typically end up risking so many things, be it personal or professional data, and it starts impacting you in different ways, right? So probably that's my different take on why we tend to still go with the basic password string patterns kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, but I've seen that many organizations like banking sectors, even social media, some of the social media, they're asking you to change your password every few months, 3 months or 4 months, and they don't allow you to use last five passwords. So you're bound to use something new, something different, and come out from your safe, kind of comfort zone and try to use a different password. So this is happening. Like there are few organizations which is making it a bit painful, but again, security wise, they're trying to make sure that like you have that authentication factor. You must have seen banking has started using images also, along with the your PIN number, your OTP, and everything. They're using images also to verify that you are the right person for the thing. So yeah, these organizations are taking care of it, but there are many who still allow you to use at least 6 digits of password and make use a weak password also, and use things. So those are, I believe, kind of risky areas where you can share your details.
Yeah. In addition
Yes,
to this, I think like I'm from a company where we mostly take care of training and consulting. So when it comes to training, we say that we every employee needs to use a strong password. So what is the meaning of strong password? If we can have some security campaign in the company itself for the employees and also at the registration page, and as Ravi mentioned,
yeah.
we should have that password reset option as well. So in that as well, if we can incorporate the password strength meters, which we see
Mm.
generally in the registration page or the login pages, that will give users real time response that the password which you have created is strong enough or not. So they can understand that. And yes, definitely password managers we can use. The different factors of authentication which Ravi mentioned, that also we can use. So campaign awareness and the training, and plus the policy, as Manish mentioned, that should be user friendly. They should also understand that why this policy is created, that you can't use 3 months. If we can give real time scenarios that how these passwords are hacked, and because of that reason these kind of policies are created, I think that can give a more adaptive approach to the employees for using the strong passwords. Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
absolutely.
before we move on to a different topic or a portion of the discussion, we spoke about passwords, different policies, different regulations, and different layers of security. Why do we even need passwords? I mean, we have so many technology. We don't even need passwords to. I mean, you
Mhm.
just get out of that zone, right? And look at other methods of authentication. Is that even possible?
Oh, absolutely. That's one area that we can think about. I'm not sure, like if you have seen Medium, where we all write articles, and they do not have that login password mechanism. They will make you log in through a magic link. So they just require your email ID, and then if you have to log in, they'll send you a link, and then you can just log in at that time.
Yeah,
So there is no
that's what
password.
some of, yeah, the magic link. So you can click and you can log
Yes,
in.
yes, one time,
But again,
and
don't you
like
think it's depend upon your email also? Like anyway, you're logging in somewhere to log into some other places, right? You're still sharing
absolutely.
passwords.
It makes you connect to your Twitter, and there are like backend mechanisms that they have, but
Yeah, and that's where we come in, right? Because
yeah,
everything is fixed with your endpoint. Everything is
So
on the
Ravi, I have a
endpoint.
question for you. Like you and Shivani are from the security industry. So is there any tool right now in the market which allows people to use a different approach other than that just normal, 6 digit or 8 digit password? Is there any tool which is in the market which is getting, kind of recognition right now? Because there are so many tools, so many,
Yeah,
systems and CRM,
I mean,
and people use it online. Yeah.
great question, Manish. Now, even before we look at the tools, I think one of the ancient method in technology is certificates. And if we just use the certificates, which would, in fact, if we layer the certificate authentication along with whatever other method we want to use, even along with passwords as well, if you just layer it with your security authentication along with your certification certificates, which is public key and private key combination, it gives you much better security posture than just having the passwords.
But ultimately, we end up using the password, right? Because see, there's so many platforms right now in the market, and doesn't matter how much we want to secure, it's up to them to make it secure, right? We can only use the data or information, we can only add the information or data which they're asking. So if there are 10 platforms which we are using and all of them are asking us to add a password, we don't have the user, we don't have a choice, right? We may secure our own product, we may introduce those security features in our own product which we are building out, but the other platform which we are using like Gmail, I mean, like they have a multiple security features. They track IP address, they track like how many places you're using the same thing. But ultimately, they come back again to your mobile phone to verify things, right? Even you are the person who is using it, but it has to verify it by phones and all this stuff. But there are only few organizations which are doing it, and I believe those are the organizations which we use a lot, like Facebook or Instagram or Gmail.
Yeah, for security, I think I always look at it as a shared responsibility. I cannot, or nobody can have single individual or an entity responsible for security or accountable for security. It has to be consumer as well as the service provider. Both have to go hand in hand to ensure that security is optimum. If a service provider is giving plethora of services, like if you mentioned Gmail or Google, they give like 20 other services that you can protect your email with. But if you as a user keep password 123 and you keep missing your phone everywhere, even if you have 2FA enabled, Google cannot help you, right? So it has to be a partnership between consumer and the service provider to ensure that security is maintained.
And just to add to it, like security is always looked at like, okay, you have password and you lost your password, it's done, right? It's not like of a single silver bullet kind of thing, right? It's always a defense in depth. When we
Yeah.
talk about security, there's a concept of defense in depth wherein you start building multiple layers of defensive tools or probably policies in place, right? Wherein, let's say, even if you consider that your password is compromised for some reason, that is typically, like Ravi called it out, it's authentication. But what about authorization, right? So once you authenticate, the next thing is authorization, wherein are you authorized to do these things, right? It can be read only access, it can be basically, it boils down to RBAC access control, right? And on top of it, if you have full access and you do some bad things, then are there different mechanisms? Let's say you're deleting data, are there different mechanisms to hold that data for some time, defer that deletion, and then probably someone will be able to reward it back, right? So as we talk about risk and security again, passwords cannot be that single silver bullet kind of thing.
Yeah.
It always has to be defense in depth philosophy, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Like we have seen like layers of authentication and authorization in apps now that are built. They require biometric. Then they require you to enter the ODP sent to your registered phone number or an email, and then the password. So somewhere the security and usability over here, I feel sometimes spins off, but then that's the way we have to have better security measures in place. So
Yeah, classic
yeah.
example that Sanket was mentioning about authentication and authorization is Gmail, right? When you take up any Google services, you first authenticate, and then it really asks you to authorize a device.
Hmm.
And if you come in into if you try to log in from a new device, then you have to authorize it from a previous device. So there you go. Like it has to be a combination.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing which I've seen in the mobile, like whenever we download anything, we allow a lot of stuff. We don't care like what we are allowing. We just want to use it and get rid of it, right? So we click on allow, and we forget that it's sharing our photograph, it's sharing our audio, it's sharing everything. And most of them are not aware of it because they believe that they're just sharing with what we had wanted to share, but they have the access to all the data, right? And we do this thing with all the apps which we use. Even it's a game or anything. So the risk factors are really high in those areas because that's where they have the access to those apps. They have the access to our personal data also. So even if you use the password and everything, the risk of these areas are really really high. So
Yeah.
is there anything which can be done in this area to secure it?
Uh, I would like to answer that in a different way, and probably I'll pass it on to Abhilasha or Ravi. See, typically, security and a user experience are two very different ends, right?
Yeah.
They are meant to clash with each other. So, if you want to give a good experience, typically you will have to compromise on security. And as you build a secure product, you cannot give a very optimum
Yeah.
user experience, right? That's what again I have seen in different products, different workflows, wherein you called it out, hey, I blindly say allow, give all the access, right? Even though that entire flow was designed to educate the user that you're doing this and you're willingly giving access to probably your camera, probably to your microphone, your SMS, right? Which in turn can compromise your security. I, as a user, probably I overlooked at it, and I didn't understand the implication. Just for the experience point of view, I ignored it, and I ended up compromising my own data, right? So, in a way, security and user experience always clash with each other, and finding that balance comes through even like your product design itself, right? How you educate your users, how simple you make your UI to educate them and block them from doing certain bad things as well, right? So that will end up in educating your users and minimizing risk. But overall, it's a very difficult problem that even
Yeah.
all the experts are trying to address today in the market, right? But to answer your question now, see, it becomes pretty challenging to get rid of all the authorization and authentication methods, because that's the first layer of your defense, right?
Yeah.
If you don't harden it up, it becomes pretty easy for like malicious users to break and get into your network in a way. Network, what I mean is that can be your app, that can be your professional network, home network, and so on. But as you harden it, it becomes difficult, and then you keep on adding different layers wherein you can say, Ravi called out, hey, do you approve the second device? Or if you're deleting something, if you're adding another user, there's another OTP, right? That is probably gone on to different channel itself. First it was email, second time it was on your SMS or mobile app, right? So that way you keep on building different layers, which you in a way mandate your consumer to follow that process, even if they want to skip it. At some point, as a service provider, you can make it difficult, but again, without risking your business, right?
Yeah.
Because then users can simply go away and say, hey, this app is too complicated, I don't want to deal with this. So that's a pretty tricky problem to solve, to achieve that balance between user experience and security.
Very
Absolutely.
rightly said, Sangeet, this point. So, in addition to this, I want to mention when we say authorization, we also have to understand that what kind of access we are giving. Are we implementing the principle of least privilege access? Because password is the key to all the access which we are giving to that identity. So, if we have a proper access control for the identities we have, I think we can minimize the risk of breach. That 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 kind of approach we need to follow. Plus, when we say the application permission, so whenever we are giving API permission, we can make the categories that these applications, if user will give consent, that will not make much difference if we talk about risk. But these are the applications which are very very confidential in nature when we talk about the accessing to the data of the organization. So in that case, admin can keep the consent, so that, because if we check the shadow IT, if we go for the shadow IT, we know that thousands of applications are running in parallel, and we don't know that how many applications are at risk. Are they following the compliance or not? So those things are also there. So if we follow the proper access control and the API permissions, I think
Mhm.
the risk which we have for the password breach, we can minimize that as well using these technologies. And the very important factor, that is zero trust architecture. When we say shared responsibility defense in depth, I think that also we need to understand that nothing is considered as a legit. Every access which is coming, that we need to consider as a type of a breach which is coming to the access for the resources. So I think that we can keep. Yeah.
Yeah, so Manish, to your question of how do we protect uh, against allowing all access, one answer or a one-line answer is ignorance is not bliss. And it is for the user as well as for the service provider, the app maker, right? And that is where governance comes in. And governance plays a big part because sometimes if we are the developers and if we are developing, maybe we don't know certain rules and regulation, and we are putting those ask or those requirements as to access that app. And if we put that and user just goes and say yes, yes, yes to all, both of us are in risk. And that is why it is important to kind of have those governance in place, have those compliance in place, so that the development team goes through that security check and gets and fills those security gaps when they're building these products to ensure that they're compliant with certain rules and regulations before they go out to the market.
The reason I raised this question because we were talking about the password. What happened after you enter a very secure password? You're still at risk because you're sharing the
Yes,
information. I'll give you
yes,
another example. I was talking about the phone, right? Like we allow things and things happen. And in the like when we are doing anything in the laptop, we always have password manager to save the password. We always also have Chrome extension which asks us, do you want to save the password? And we happily go and save the password because we want to make it our life easy. We don't want to remember things, right? I hardly believe that in our phone also we hardly remember two or three numbers, right? Maybe our girlfriend's numbers or maybe our wife's number of a family member's number, but we don't remember more than two or three numbers. We don't, because our memory is not that sharp anymore. And we know, like shows on Netflix, we don't remember the password and all this stuff. So even in the Chrome extensions, if we save the password, it doesn't matter how secure we save the password. If you're saving in the extension, they never verify us, that are we the right user. If you're logged into the system, we are the user. And if whoever has the access to our laptop can easily access our password, they can view the password from there, or we can use the password also. I think users need to be educated properly that what are the areas where even having a safe password could not be a helpful step. They need to make sure that they keep their password secret also.
Yeah.
What do you think?
absolutely, absolutely. And that is why I think it's important for vendors to provide some kind of a view of security posture. Like the product that I support and really proud of the product that we support is that we provide our customers the visibility of their security posture. That if you're using my service, this is how secure you are. These are the gaps that you have,
Mhm.
and we have a dashboard for it. The customers can go into that dashboard and look at it, saying, and one of us have helped build that,
Yeah.
and that dashboard definitely shows the customer that
Absolutely.
what are the gaps, and the customer can look at it and fill those gaps. So it's very important to the vendors also to provide that security posture visibility to the users. And another point is like one thing we spoke about password managers, and now we're talking about extension storing it. So we should separate it. If we should by default use password managers to store passwords, have difficult passwords, store it there and nowhere else.
We should have a kind of do's and don'ts for the users that, if you are having trouble saving the password or keep remembering the password, use a password manager and not the extension, or not a
Absolutely,
red book
absolutely.
where you keep all the passwords. Just try to make it safe as much as possible. Yeah.
The Hydra red bug.
It's not only related to passwords as well, right? Just to extend that story further, if you talk about different companies, develop product companies, right? The biggest unit that they will have is development team. And typically developers, what they tend to do is, let's say they're working on AWS, they'll have their own access keys and secret keys, right? It's not only passwords for the accounts that they use, but also these cloud infrastructures and different services that they use. So everyone will have their own access and secret key, let's say AWS, for example. And it also matters how these experienced developers, they deal with these credentials, right? I've seen experienced developers using these keys and probably checking that those keys into code and committing it into a repo as well, right? Genuine mistakes, human error occurs, and you end up leaking your data, right? So again, if you do that by mistake, like Ravi called out, uh, the security posture scanner, how do you detect these problems? How do you report that in time? How do you go reset those access keys and secret keys for impacted users, right? That becomes very important. It's about identifying the risk, and responding to that risk becomes very important, right? Detecting and responding. Again, talking about passwords, there are different variants of passwords. We just talk about what I put in into a user and password field. But apart from that, developers typically have so many credentials that they put it into their environment variables, that they put it
Yeah.
into probably some other like secret manager within AWS. They have a service called as secrets manager. So there are so many areas where you put in your credentials, and if let's say your one of the service breaks and data leak happens in one of those services, the blast radius can be so big. It's kind of a butterfly effect, right? It basically rolls into different services and you end up having a big impact. Also, what I've seen is people using their personal services or personal apps. Most probably, they may have their own personal Gmail account logged in into their the working or professional assets, right? They may have company laptop and they log in through their personal Gmail, and accidentally probably they authenticate their Gmail account into some different app, or maybe office account into their personal app, right? So there are so many different possibilities wherein it's not only password, but later on how that authentication happens and how the data leak can happen. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
True.
that's a nightmare I face a lot. A lot of clients, when they create an account, when we ask them to create an account, they end up creating account by using their Gmail account, and it's a nightmare because how they will share the password to us, and they end up sharing the password to us, and it's a nightmare, to be very honest. Even I make mistakes when I create a Canva account just to use for our personal things. My team wanted to have the access. I had no choice to other than just provide them the account access directly, because it was needed at a very important time and we didn't have time to change the entire stuff, right? Happened with this Calendly also. So you're totally right. Whenever we are using our email account, we need to make sure that are we the only one who are going to use it, or then people will be using our account too. We need to make sure that we are using it very diligently. We are not using it everywhere. We're just using it where we only want the access. So that's a good point. Really good point.
Yeah, also how you pass on that password, right? Typically, talking about enterprises, your IT may reset password for you. You may IT may create new accounts, right? I've seen people sharing passwords through Jira tickets. It's like out there, right? For some time,
Yes.
user resets it later on. It's there for probably 15 minutes or so, right? People sharing credentials, AWS secret keys through Slack, right? So it's going to
Credit
stay out.
cards. Credit card. People are just sending the photographs of their credit cards just to make sure that they don't have to, share again and again. So yeah, it's very risky. Yeah.
That's why Ravi mentioned, it's shared responsibility. So, like Secret Manager, Microsoft is having keyword. So, if you are not aware about such kind of safe lockers in cloud, then most probably people will be sharing their credentials at such kind of network. So, that is important. And also, I think the sorting techniques which are used generally, that is also a way of storing or securing the password from the data breaches. And also the adaptive behavior techniques which we see, like user sign in risk policy. These kind of policies can also work in a real time if they see that the high risk user is having multiple failed sign in. So what kind of action can be taken, the smart lockouts which are happening. So because we are training people, but if they are not following the practice, we should also have a backup plan to control or manage or mitigate from such situations. So these are also the techniques which we can use to manage the password breach, or how we can take it ahead.
No, absolutely,
Good.
absolutely correct, Abhilasha. And while we are testing, we always recommend users, like you mentioned, about salting mechanisms and having passwords which are like but still, where we feel, we have personal stories also to share while using password managers, or while using certain, even for a normal user who wants to manage their passwords securely, and they want to be like, I want to practice secure password storing mechanisms, and we go ahead and we have a password manager. So this is a very personal story. I think Ravi can also shed some light on that. So we had that experience before as well. So Ravi, you would want to share that maybe?
Yeah, good place to pull my leg.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a big comedy in terms of me being a backup guy as well as now trying to learn security. It's a big step back because I use a specific password manager, and thanks to Apple, they have this iCloud feature. Uh, and I had my password manager's database stored in my documents with a fancy path that I had created, which nobody could guess it, that I have my that database sitting in there. But unfortunately, it was under my documents. And when I, one fine day, my laptop was like not having enough space. So why not let's start using iCloud? You go, tick, I want to use iCloud. What did it do? It moved everything from my desktop and my documents to iCloud. And then for some reason, I did not like that. I like, okay, let me disable that. Ding, I disabled it. Unfortunately, it just deleted everything. Gone. Done. Thank you very
For
much.
mobile and also from the iCloud. Very good.
Gone. Gone. Just gone. And I'm like, okay, there were just documents. I might have it on my G drive, wherever. And then I try to log in on, then obviously it has a strong password. Let's go to the password manager. Try to log in, it's not finding the database. And boom, that's what happened with me. And I had to go back, recreate all my passwords one by one. And then one of the best practices is like, don't have a single point of failure. Replicate your DV into different places so that you can always safeguard it. And everything that I teach my customers that you should back up whatever retentions and all of that, I'm applying that to me now. And yeah, that's the story of my life.
So one of
So just wanted
the,
to ask you one thing. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, 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 Manish, go ahead.
My question was that being a layman who has to handle a lot of things, what are your recommendations? Like five important steps we should take care of when we are dealing with, maybe a small password management to a big password management. It doesn't matter. Like being a user, normal user, what are the key things we need to make sure we follow on daily life to secure ourselves? What are your suggestions digitally? Yeah.
My first suggestion is never be in rush. That's a very important aspect because at times, let's say you go to book a ticket and you have to kind of log into your financial app and you don't remember the password and you have to, or it takes 5 minutes to log into that app. Let it take that 5 minutes. Don't be in rush to like, because the moment you get in that rush zone, you tend to forget things, you tend to do things that you should not, and it creates like all kind of havoc. So it's okay to be little relaxed, little late, but be secured. That's the number one thing. And coming from the experience of my own story, clear learning was that have cannot have a single point of failure. And we, as I said, like this is one of the example that clearly tells me that my work is, or whatever I learn in my work or my professional life is not away from my personal life. Things that I learn there should be applied here as well because it's really important. I go in and I preach everybody that cannot have single point of failures, have multiple network layers, have different bandwidth, and so on and forth. Do that at your home also so that you're equally safe and secured and you don't have those point of failures. Right. So these two are very important for me, that cannot have a single point of failure and cannot do things in rush. So I would say just two of that. I will invite other panelists to say three more points.
Yes, like as a wind up to the session, we would like to understand like what can be the best practices, that we can follow in this today's digital landscape to make sure that our passwords are strong, and we are also like effectively making sure that they are secured properly to avoid any breaches? A parting thought from everybody.
Maybe I'll just add a couple of lines.
Yes.
So first, be it your personal applications or professional work applications, you should always go with strong password policy. You don't have to wait for your organization to mandate some policies for you. As a user, you should always have that knowledge of what is a strong password, right? How many characters, what is the combination, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, so on and so forth, right? Second thing is you should not, you should avoid to a greater extent of reusing the passwords, right? You should have random strings. You should not have a pattern to it. So that will increase the effectiveness of that strong password, right? Avoid storing password in your emails, in your drafts, in your SMS, in your phone, or any messenger app, right? Try to stick to any password manager. Again, you don't have to go for paid applications. Even if you have basic Gmail account, it gives a solid password manager, which is inbuilt feature. And then once that is done, what you need to do is you need to enable multi-factor authentication. If not multi-factor, at least two-factor. You need to have that second factor, which is typically bare minimum SMS kind of thing, right? It can begin with SMS, it can go to OTPs, it can go to authenticator apps, it can go up till a security key, hardware key, which is considered to be the most effective one, right? And also combining it with multiple factors. You can have your key, you can have your pop-up on your app, and so on, right? So having those multiple factors will definitely strengthen the security posture for you. And then, of course, there are a couple of other ways to improve the security posture depending on what you're looking at, be it your professional social media apps or professional apps, or personal social media apps kind of thing, right? So depending on that, you can take a couple of additional steps. But with that, let me pause and hand it over to maybe Ravi.
Thank you, Sanjay. So, apart from having multi factors, strong passwords, phrases, storing passwords, I would suggest don't join public networks. Don't download stuff from weird places. Uh, I mean, it's important that how we keep our digital path, right? The digital path on the network is very important, and it's like when we used to go in trains from our city to another city, like parents used to say, don't eat what others are giving you, don't talk to so many people. We just have to follow that in digital as well. As to if I have to go and access my email, just go and access your email. Why you have to go to any other site or try to do fancy stuff on that, right? So it's very important. The other thing is, as I said, don't join public networks. Now you have 5G. Now you have Geo, and most of us have two phones. Even if you don't have two phones, you may have two SIMs. You don't need public network. You don't have to go to Secunderabad railway station and download a movie. I mean, it has happened in past. So you don't do all that, and things and facilities are available to keep yourself secured.
In addition to that, I want to mention that what we discussed, like Sanket and Ravi, it's about best practices for individuals. So I wanted to have some best practices from organization perspective as well. Like the very important thing which we use right now is SSO. Most of the applications are integrated with that only. So why not organization can have proper categories that these are my confidential applications. If I'm allowing any users to come and use the same login session, but then can I have one more layer, because we talk about zero trust also. So I'm not going to trust for this application that whatever user is coming is legit. We can have one more layer of security. Maybe we can have them to go through MFA, or we can have some other layer also. By that also we can prevent if that user is having a breach password or not very strong password. In addition to that, a clear instructions about the password policies which you want to implement in your organization. What kind of multi-factor authentications you want to use. If you want to go for FIDO2, as Sanket mentioned, will your employee will be having access to that? And are you going to implement that in the waves or not? So it's not will happen in overnight, it will take some time, so you have to plan your strategy in a proper manner so that your employee will feel it comfort when they want to adapt new things. And also a very important part which I see when I talk to customers as well, the user sign-in patterns. We have lot of tools like sim solutions where we can see the entire user pattern at a single dashboard. So we need to make sure that entire auditing which we are doing, the logs which we are having, we will be having a proper analysis of those logs to understand the behavior of the sign-in of users, so that we can identify that this might be a chance of compromise, this might be a chance of breach. So immediately we can have automated response policy. So that's where the picture comes when sim and source solutions come, because manually we can't prevent this such large things which are happening, millions of people are trying to attack the organizations. So sim and source solutions can help in using the AI techniques to automatically responding to the things which are coming, and maybe then you can work on, if that's not correct, you can again change the policy which you have created or the flow you have created. So I think both the side we have to check the best practices. These are the few things which I want to add. Over to you, Manish, and the other panelists.
I think all of you have already covered everything which I wanted to add. I was just, ticking it off. Okay, it's already been said. So I don't have much in my list, but dealing in this industry where we have to deal with a lot of passwords, I have got two suggestions. One from the user end. Being a user, a normal user, I should make sure that I don't share my password with a lot of people, and plus if I'm using a phone and I'm using my all the payment applications, banking application on my phone, so I don't end up using a lot of other malicious mobile applications on that particular phone, like downloading games or anything like that, which can always open my which can always uh, threat could be a threat to my secure applications like my Paytm or Google Pay. I need to make sure I should not use those things. So my suggestion would be that. And being on the client end, I think you rightly mentioned having a logbook where we can see the number of wrong sign up in a month, or maybe a wrong number of attempt of login from a different IP address could be a kind of sign where we can see that okay, these are attempts have been made, and if there's any red flag, then take an action accordingly. So those kind of things should be very much in place for the user and also for the company as well. So we can see like what are the lack of securities which has happened for a particular user or maybe a group of user in a certain point of time, so that we can take actions accordingly. Implementing a feature where people will be maybe asked to change password on a regular basis so that their site could be secure. Those kind of stuff.
All right.
So, Shivani,
Thank
I
you.
would like to just sum it up and
Yes.
leave everyone with one thought. A key takeaway would be like we discussed a lot of things, but as an end user, what you can do is at least get started with a Gmail password manager. I'm not promoting them, but it's one of the easily accessible tool for everyone,
Yes.
right? But you can go with any other password manager. And what these password managers do is they also have feature to scan your passwords and whether and check and report whether there was any leak wherein these credentials were captured, right? So even Google started providing those insights. So one last thought is always do your own review, regular review as a end user, wherein your credentials, whether those are compromised or not, you can get that report, keep an eye on that, and make sure you reset it in time. So yeah, I'll just leave with that one thought.
Perfect.
All right, so that brings us to the end of this wonderful discussion. I think this discussion has been nothing less than a great culmination of all the thoughts that we all had, and everyone coming from different backgrounds, brought in different insights and their own different analogies related to that. I think it has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this panel. Until I see you next time, next year
Thank you.
in the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Thank you, everyone. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So Shivani, will it upload,
Y-
or it will
Yeah,
upload?
it's live on YouTube. I'll share the link with you.
Sure. Cheers.
All right.